there, and they took him to the little clinic there in Mexico, and they put him on, he was getting double dose of blood thinner. So he looked like somebody beat the heck out of him. So I took him, and he was in the hospital then for a week. And then we've had to go to a radiologist, another specialist over in Kenwood, and he's going to have more surgery.
Oh, goodness.
This next Wednesday. It's traveled down into his neck.
Oh, goodness.
And it's the kind, I guess, that can get in your vascular system. But he's very nervous, and
yeah.
So
I'd be nervous just to go to all those medical places right now.
Well, they must think this is really necessary, or they wouldn't be doing it. Because my daughter-in-law is a surgery nurse at Claremont Mercy, and she said they're just doing the ones that have to be done. So she told him this must have to be done because they wouldn't be. And hopefully we got things taken care of early.
Yeah. Vivian's husband had a kidney stone about probably 10 days ago, and he had to have a procedure done, and they were really nervous about going to the hospital.
Oh boy. It's tough times.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it.
I was reading a book with our book club up here. I missed that, Hawaii. And it told about the Spanish epidemic in the early 1900s. But the book was hard to get into.
Yeah.
But sometimes the ones that are hard to get into turn out to be really good.
Yeah, if you just stick with
the one we liked, we even had a movie night, was I think it's either Me Before You or You Before Me, and they made a movie out of it. And I had the DVD, and we had met up there, and there were several of us, of course, this was back earlier, and we loved it. So
have to check that out.
Sorry, I had muted myself. That was me, not you. So Sarah and I are both here together in the library.
Well, maybe you had a private call.
No. I just thought it would be best to keep myself muted as long as I could, so Sarah and I don't echo at one another, but we'll adjust as we need to. I've also got this streaming on YouTube Live so that we can have public if the public so desires. So
okay.
We'll see how that goes.
Well, I last night it must have gotten really chilly. When we first moved here, we moved here in 1960, and my grandmother brought a bleeding heart from down in Fletcher, Kentucky. It's between London and Corbin, and planted it. And it just looks so beautiful out here at the end of my driveway. And last night, I think the cold weather so I went out and put some plastic over it.
We had frost at our house. We had frost.
Well, weren't they even talking about maybe snow?
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
Everything's turned around, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Very much so. So Kathleen, do you have people coming and dropping food off to you, or?
Our children. They're keeping us well fed.
Good.
In fact, my daughter just left. She had to go to Sam's to get a printer cartridge. And because her husband's a teacher at the vocational school, and he needed to print off a certificate that he'd gotten from Ohio State. And their printer was out of ink. Mine was out of ink a couple weeks ago. And I was working on coming up with the evaluations for the superintendent because they didn't like the one we had. So, and I did at Home Depot curb service.
Uh-huh.
they brought it right out to me. So
Yep. Well, I will say that my husband is not quite as strict about the staying at home as I am. He thinks that an order to Best Buy for the next half a dozen Marvel Comics movies is an essential purchase. So he's done
well,
the
my son,
curbside delivery.
yeah, my son works at CVG, and it's a new hub,
Mhm.
and he hasn't missed any work. Now, my daughter-in-law that's at Claremont Mercy's, she said that they've given leave to some of them, but she's still working. So anybody else checking in yet?
Actually, I just noticed that the Showalters are. There's
Oh,
Harold.
hi, Mary Ray. Okay, Harold, turn on your audio. You know, I wouldn't be able to do these things if Harold hadn't stayed on me all those years to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Yes, how are you, Harold?
I didn't have to log in.
Yep, it just links right in. It's usually with a link like that, it will just sign you right in, and it's pretty
Oh,
handy.
okay, so should we mute and then press the space bar when we want to talk, or what?
I think that will work. I'm not sure what kind of ambient noise you've got in your environment. If you think there's going to be other stuff going on, probably muting is a good thing until you're ready to speak.
I'm not aware of anything
Do you
unless,
hear any background noise from mine?
no,
No? Good.
good.
Because my husband, Buddy's in there watching CNN, you know.
Oh, now that you mentioned, I think I did hear a little bit in the background.
Now that I mention it, what?
I think I did hear a little bit of TV in the background, but it's not distracting.
Oh, Sue.
Hey, there's Sue.
Hey, Sue. Say hi before you get up.
Audio. Hi.
There you go.
Oh,
Well, good evening. How are you, Harold?
fine, how are you?
We're hanging in there.
That's all we can do, right?
Hi. So oh, there you are. How are you, Kathleen?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm tired of being in the house, and my granddaughter's 19th birthday is today, so we met in the yard with my mask on, more than 6 feet apart, but we gave each other air hugs.
Well, it's given me a chance to tidy up my basement, get some deeper cleaning done,
Yeah.
and start getting some of these quilts put together.
Yeah. Yeah, my hardest part is that my mom's in senior living and I can't see her at all. I can
Yeah.
FaceTime her, but it's just real hard for me after being so close with her for so many years. I know my sister's there and I can see her and talk to her. She can't talk long. She gets too tired, but that separation has been a little rough.
Where is she?
She's up in Kettering,
Kettering.
and it's a senior living. They have aides to help her, but they'll only allow one family member to be declared as a caregiver.
Hope we've
So
got
that's
somebody
my
else joining
sister.
us now, huh?
Okay.
Hey, Lynn, this is Heather.
Hey, Heather, how are you?
I'm fine.
You're feeling a little under the weather, so fine is a relative term. Thank you for joining us.
I've got it on YouTube too. I'm going to try to
Okay.
test that.
Now, you know that's a 20-second delay, so don't try and
Yeah.
connect the audio you're hearing with the video you're watching.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to mute it so you don't hear me cough.
I'm gonna go turn on my overhead light.
can you hear us, Barb?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I see you, Barb.
Oh, I saw you, Kathleen, and I saw Sarah.
Hi there.
Yay. Okay, good. This is I'd forgotten my husband had an iPad, so I took it over.
This is only my second Zoom.
Yeah. I did a different meeting last week, but I did it on my desktop, and this is so much easier.
What are you on now?
And
How are you doing yours? I'm on my desktop, my Apple.
Yeah.
I'm on my laptop.
So we're missing Tracy and Mark, and I don't know about Karen. I have not heard from her.
What about Harold?
He's here.
Oh, okay, good. Ta-da! Any
Oh,
public?
there's Karen.
There's Karen.
Hi.
Hi, Karen.
Karen.
Hey.
Harold. This is exciting, isn't it?
Isn't it though?
How are you?
New normal.
It's much better than not meeting or only being able to hear the audio.
Yes.
Thanks for arranging this.
No problem. It didn't take me but 3 days to figure out how to download it and set it up and, and start using it.
Very good.
When I tried to set mine up yesterday morning on my desk computer, I had to type in my password. And I've got a little book with the username and password for everything, and I could not find it.
Oh, no.
And finally I found it. And then I thought, wow.
Just amazing. Isn't it? That we can do this. I figured I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't figure it out.
Yeah, you got it.
It's really easy. Yeah. I mean, from this end it is. I've never had to set one up. But
No. My sister had one and her daughter had set it up for their yoga group. So
Oh,
I
wow.
hard dance for me. Hey, you have a full picture. Wow, Barb.
Well, I did. I just turned it sideways because it's easier.
Okay. Mine's not doing that.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Are we to wait for other people? Mark, is Mark coming?
As far as I know, Mark is going to be joining us and Tracy as well. I know Tracy has used Zoom before, so I suspect she doesn't need
I
as much
thought Tracy
practice.
would be the first one on there.
She
Yeah.
probably does not need as much practice as it has taken me. I've used a couple of friends as guinea pigs to practice, so hopefully I don't do any big mess ups here.
Well, I read someplace that you had a meeting via this. Didn't you have a community meeting with Zoom something?
Did a Chamber of Commerce meeting using Zoom. It was actually someone else's subscription at that point, but yes.
Yeah, Perry Township did it on Monday night for their meeting, so that was the first one we joined. And it worked very well. You can get your work done and you don't all have to be in the same building, so.
Oh, that's
I don't have to wear my mask.
good.
Yeah, we're being very careful.
I don't know about this careful, but I've been in, this is starting the 4th week. I don't know how longer I can stand it. I can garden and that's okay, but it's not so okay.
Yeah.
No contact. You know, it's hard when there's only one person in the household.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I've stayed connected to friends, and I've even had people out of state emailing me during this that maybe I'd only talk to once a year. Kermit McCarty, remember Harold?
Yes.
Kermit McCarty, Shirley Russell, Maxine McCarthy in Florida. So usually they would just maybe wish me happy birthday now, you know, and I just got to thinking, we're kind of lucky during all of this to have cell phones and computers to stay in touch with each other.
Right.
Where is Shirley Russell now? Where is Shirley?
Do what?
Where is Shirley now?
Shirley's in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
Kermit's in Dayton. Maxine's in Florida.
All over. That's great.
Yeah, something about this is making us reach out because I called a cousin I haven't talked for a year. And one of Jesse's old friends from when he worked called him, and that's been 2 years since he's heard from her. So it's like everybody's sitting at home going, I've got to reach out to this person.
And then we had a little excitement last week, you know.
The tornado.
Lake Lorelei tornado.
Was there much damage there?
Please.
Was there much damage?
Oh, there was a good bit of damage, and it was like a straight line up in Jackie and Jim, you know, where they live out on Fayetteville, Blanchester, and by their pond, it took some Bradford pears, a couple Bradford pears, and one down their driveway. So, but thank goodness, no damage to homes and that. But out at the lake, it was more toward the back. One of the Eckstein boys, it trees down all over the place, but no damage, didn't look like to their home. So that was pretty lucky. But, you know, if the weather would be nice, I'd like to go out on my back porch, my patio. You'll find this interesting, Harold. I'll get done here before 6:30. Doc Wilkins' home has sold. You remember the Smith family? Mary Jordan married one of the Smith brothers. The Smiths brought bought Becker's drugstore and then had a little hamburger place and an ice cream place down there on the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah.
I don't even remember this brother, but he bought Dr. Wilkins' house and they have been over there every day except Easter Sunday, cleaning up the yard. They're going to get a new roof put on the house and do
Well,
some
that's
remodeling.
great.
And I thought, whoa, that'll be kind of nice sitting out there looking across the road and seeing that, because before you're just seeing it going downhill. Well,
Right.
hello there.
Hello.
There's Tracy.
Hello.
See,
Just got one more.
Mhm,
Mark, Tracy.
mhm.
Well, that's because we all tuned in early because we weren't sure.
Everybody feeling okay?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Bored.
The biggest library closure that has hurt my mother is she does the Ohio Library for the Blind out of Cleveland,
Yeah.
and they aren't even shipping any of the talking books.
Right.
Mom could do downloads, but she can't physically see her computer or do it that well.
Yeah.
So she has reread the 5 books she had in her apartment 5 times now. She said she's got them memorized. So we downloaded 3 audio books, and hopefully by May, maybe they'll at least be doing the, receiving and taking in the mail and sending it out. But that's kind of left her high and dry.
You know, I must say,
Does she enjoy listening?
I must say that I used to, I would go to Kroger's and they had the bookstore there in Kroger's. And every week when I'd go get groceries, I'd be sneaking a book and they were costing like 27, 28, up to $32. They don't cost that much on Amazon when you download them into your Kindle. You can get them for way under $10.
Yeah,
So
it's free on Libby.
and when I download them, because I've got 2 daughters, a granddaughter, 2 granddaughters, a daughter-in-law, all of them can read them too. So, and it'll be 2 weeks this
about-
Sunday that the girl used to be on the news. Oh, she's married to the guy that does Doonesbury. And she talked about Shaker Heights in Cleveland.
Yep.
I downloaded those 2 books.
Oh, Little Fires Everywhere. And her
Little
new
Fires
book?
Everywhere, and the other one, it's the other one. I'm like in it, and it's sad.
I haven't
Very
read the
sad.
new one yet. I have read Little Fires Everywhere, and I liked it a lot. I made Jeremy take me up to Cleveland one time so we could see the neighborhood and where things happened in the
Well,
book.
I used to take this old couple that lived out at Lake Lorelei up to Cleveland one weekend every month. They paid me to do it. I don't know if you remember them, Harold, Joe, and Alice. I don't remember their last name, but they were very wealthy people. So when we get back together again, you can ask me about that. Okay, hit that gavel.
Okay.
Okay, call to order.
Mark, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I don't see that Mark has audio yet.
Coming. Yes, to
Here. Harold, I see. Tracy, I see. Barb, I see. Karen, Sue, and Kathleen. You're all here.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a guest, it looks like.
Okay, number 2, is any public participation?
Heather is participating by phone, so that's the phone number that you see.
Excellent.
Okay,
And we also are live streaming this on our YouTube channel, so the public can observe what is going on. At this point, we don't have any requests to speak to the board. So we figured that if somebody really wanted a response, they could either call or email, and we can give them a response after the meeting is done.
Okay.
Mark,
Number 3, approval of minutes of the February regular meeting. Do we have a motion?
I move.
I'll second.
Oh, Mark. Oh my goodness. I couldn't figure out how.
Hello.
Couldn't figure out if it was so good.
All right, so Mark, Harold,
Yes.
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen, Kathleen,
Yes.
and Sue.
Yes.
Okay, number 4, correspondence for February and March.
As you might guess, most of the correspondence was related to the coronavirus. And since we will be talking about that at length later, I won't go into detail now. Excuse me. But between March and April, March's PLF was down just a tad, and then April's was down by about 10%. We expect that, although Sarah mentioned that it was down only about $3,000 from last year.
That's correct.
So not a huge amount, but I think that the worst is yet to be seen. And
Can I make a quick recommendation?
sure.
We're getting a lot of feedback and sound from all the different windows, even though people are being pretty quiet. If everybody would mute their sound until we need to have a discussion, and then we can unmute, and then there won't be that background noise.
How do you mute?
Put your cursor into the window frame where your picture is,
Okay.
and you should see a blue mute button pop up. You
Yeah.
can just,
Well, unfortunately, that muted you.
duh. Okay, so when you do that, you'll see a red microphone with a slash through it. And that's how you know you're muted. And when you want to unmute, you can't click the red microphone. You have to go back to the top of the window to click the blue button.
Or the space bar, perhaps? Does the space bar work also to unmute?
I'm tapping it and I'm not getting any.
Okay. I also can mute as the host, so I can. There. I think we've done everyone. All right. So,
When you want to talk in, on the Mac, you can press the space bar.
okay. So beyond what we'll talk about in terms of what Ohio Library Council has been telling us to do and for response to the COVID-19, I also did want to just mention that early on, before we went down to being by appointment only and then to actually being closed, there was a brief flurry of activity on social media. Unfortunately, some of it was connected with a couple of our staff members who were not in communication with us. And there was some strong negativity, I guess I will say. But at the same time, we also had received several very positive comments about how we were handling slowly shutting down and still being able to provide some of our services, even though it was by appointment. So I just wanted to let you know that if you had seen any of that, and of course it seems like that was years ago, even though it was just 3 or 4 weeks ago, it did take place. But yeah, we'll talk a lot about COVID-19 throughout the rest of the meeting, so I'm not going to bore you with all of the many messages we've been getting from OLC about that right now.
Did you
So-
say that the negativity was from our staff?
Yeah, there was a little bit of drama and, basically saying that we should have been closed right away, And I am very aware of and compassionate to people's individual needs when it comes to protecting their own health and their family circumstances. But if a staff member is not going to be in communication with their supervisors or with the library and are just throwing things out there to create some conversation, it was not very beneficial or effective, really. So we haven't heard a lot since then. Of course, I've personally blocked seeing some of that, so I don't hear it all the time.
Well, maybe that was partly because Adams County closed pretty fairly early on, I think.
There were libraries, that is correct. There were libraries that even the day that I think it was the 12th of March when the governor first announced that schools would be closing the following week. There were some libraries that shut down within hours. My personal opinion was that was a little bit quick without time to actually be looking at the circumstances more, but we also are not in the same position as libraries that have thousands of people coming in their doors every day. We did take a little bit longer to make some decisions about how we were going to handle it. But the whole time, I think we were being very careful to listen to what the authorities were saying and trying to follow the best guidance from those authorities. But that's all I have for correspondence.
Are you there, Kathleen?
I just unmuted her. So I'm done with the correspondence, and I guess we want to go on to the next thing on the list.
I vote we move on to financial reports.
That would be you, Sarah. Do you want me to unmute you, or you good? I've got it. Second, Harden, you got it. Okay.
Got it. So financials, since we didn't have a meeting last month, I'm not really sure where to start. Should I just talk about March? Should I do February as well? What do you guys think? I don't want to bore you. How about we just do March?
I think the March report will reflect the February
Yeah, right.
transaction, so I don't see any point in going back to February.
Okay. Turn my volume up a little bit. All right, so the appropriation summary is the first report. So we're 3/12 of the way through. We're through the first quarter. You'll notice that middle column is the month-to-date expenditures, which is what I always look at. So it looks like our salaries for the month were about $58,000. Our benefits were about $13,000. All of our purchases and library materials, one was $87,000 and one was $16,000. So those are all pretty normal. Bank reconciliation report. We had some adjustments. I had some friends pay for the quarter. The adjusted bank balance as of the end of March was $865,791.92, which is kind of high because we got the real estate settlement from the second half of 2019, which was the largest amount we've gotten, which was $353,000. So that was nice to see that hit our bank.
Will we get that again later on in the year?
Yeah, we'll get the first half of 2020. That should come in August. So we'll get that again in August. Let's see. Outstanding payments, most all of those have cleared. There's Brown County Educational Service Center. We had to do some GU background checks. Those haven't cleared because they're not doing background checks obviously right now. General fund cash flow. It shows you the actuals from January, February, and March. I'm going to talk about the quarter wrap up, so I'm not going to talk too much about this report. Cash summary. We didn't have any transfers in March. You'll notice that the fund balance, the third column from the right, matches my bank reconciliation report. Fund summary report, we currently have $118,000 in POs that are open. In February, this was much higher, and that was because of the renovations for the Fayetteville branch. So if you noticed, that number was much larger last month. March expenditure, I can't talk today. Expenditure reconciliation, all funds. Sorry, this is my first Zoom call. This is kind of awkward. Not gonna lie. Payment listings, we had 70,000 in payments. You'll notice the payrolls of the month. They're all within $1,000 of each other, so that's good. We had our board share for retirement and our board share for Medicare, our insurance. And then for city tax, I had to pay for first quarter. So those numbers look a little bit different. Payment listing. Did anybody have any questions about the payments? I don't think there was anything out of the norm. You'll notice the library design, there was a check for almost $34,000 that was sent to them. So the last report is that January through March, that comparison. So you'll notice that our library fund is up about 10,000 from last year. So that's good. We got that second half of 2019 tax. So you'll see that. I didn't have any homestead or rollback yet this year. I'm expecting that this month. Services from other entities is up a little bit. Our receipts are down a little bit. And then our employee salary in the middle part, our salaries from last year are up about $10,000, and that is because of everybody got us an increase at the beginning of the year. And then they also had the ones that hadn't been here a full year got that little bit of amount too. Employee benefits are down. I think I wasn't here last year when we went to the new health plan, but I think that's had some savings. Library materials, that is up. And that is up because of the POs that we carried over from the end of last year. So that's the Baker and Taylor that was left over. Any questions about this report? Any questions at all about the financials? As of right now, we're in good shape, but we're going to monitor very closely to see what kind of impact we're going to have from this COVID-19.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Mark? Second.
Tracy, is your hand up because you motion? Harold and Mark. Okay, Mark?
Yes.
Yep. Harold?
Yes.
Tracy? Barbara?
Yes.
Karen? Kathleen?
Yes.
And Sue?
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve use of Quilt Cash rewards, $10 toward a supply order?
I'll move.
I'll second.
I win.
Let's see, Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen, Kathleen,
Yes.
and Sue.
Yes.
Okay, librarians report. Building report and
I
statistics for February. I guess we can look at those and
Yeah, so I did not have the managers do the typical reports for the month of March, since we only were open for part of it. And work schedules have been a little bit wacky lately. So we do have the one for February. Things were going great guns in February. They were still actively doing programs and lots of things going on. And as far as the statistics for February, those seem to be right on track as well. But again, it's kind of hard for me to talk about these things because this is not the reality of life right now. It's life is just not the way it was. So if you have any questions or have any comments about what we did in February, I'd be glad to hear them, or pass along questions and get you answers if need be. But I don't see a whole lot of point in talking about all that was another world in some ways.
The wireless use, was that because of using a different counting system, or was that actually real numbers up?
Those, I think that the numbers for the wireless are actually what they should have been showing over the past year, with the upgrade of both our wireless access points and standardizing of the software that actually runs and runs those and configures those. This is normal. I don't think it was up any significantly from the prior month or the prior year, except for the fact that the counting is more accurate.
Okay.
And as long as we're
Hey,
talking
Len.
about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to go with you that, the focus is going to have to be on the now and moving forward. What happened in February is all good and we know it's good, but we have to deal with what the world is now. Not only this meeting, but also talking about the future as well. So I support you in your thinking.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
hopefully we all feel this way.
We don't have a lot of choice, to be honest with you.
Well, speaking of the wireless, I will have to say my sister-in-law lives right next to the library, and she did ask me why the parking lot. I thought the library was closed. Well, people pull in that parking lot and use the wireless.
And that is actually happening in all of our branches pretty regularly. I know that one of the patrons actually sent a manager an email to say, hey, I forgot that the book drops were closed, was going to return some things, and the parking lot was packed. I just wanted, this person wanted us to know that the resource was being heavily utilized, which was, great, because other than looking at the numbers, we don't know.
Yeah, it's funny, people that really don't use internet much, they're thinking something else is going on. When that's all they are, it's just pulling in that parking lot using the wireless there.
At one time, did you turn them off at night?
We had not gotten to the point of turning the wireless off at night. That's actually a really good question, Harold, because our plan had been, we just had reached the next step of putting an end user agreement that pops up when you connect to the Wi-Fi so that people could, the acceptable use agreement. So we'd started that. It did not require a password, but we wanted that first layer so that people would begin to understand that pretty soon they were going to have to use a password. On April 6th, we were supposed to start using a password, but as soon as this, we got blown out of the water with normal, we said, we're not going to use the password. We're just going to leave the Wi-Fi on 24/7. We're not going to institute the password. The pop-up user agreement still does show. And then sometime after we open up again, then we'll start, we'll probably turn off the Wi-Fi at, I don't know, midnight or something, and then and institute the password once our doors are actually open again.
Would they
Great
get the password?
What's that?
How would they get the password?
Two ways. There will be something, we're actually going to post on our front door what the password is so that people who are in the parking lot can, maybe hopefully think of that. It will be on our website and it will be handed out and accessible in the building as well. I suspect that if we get questions, phone calls, emails about it, it's not like we're not going to give it out to people, but it's just a little bit more protected so that people it's not as easy to just hack in to do things they shouldn't be doing. Going along with that, we started circulating the hotspots back in November. And in the first several months, we found how very popular these were. And so we doubled our capacity. Instead of just 5 per branch, we went up to 10 hotspots per branch. We had started that actually and had them almost ready to go out the beginning of March. And so we hurriedly finished those. And so now we've got 40 hotspots circulating. They're all checked out. We are continuing to keep those at a 2-week checkout so that they can get to as many people as possible because of schools pushing the online learning through the end of the school year. So if we get requests for them, then we will call in the one that has been checked out the longest. We'll sanitize it, we'll recharge it, do all the things that need to be done, and then pass it along. No touch, and keeping our distance appropriately to the next person who has asked for it. So that is the one item that we are continuing to circulate and keep on a return schedule. Well, a semi-return schedule. We're not going to call it in unless somebody has a hold placed on it. But up through February, because I don't have the March statistics done at this point, our hotspots were being used 10 to 12 times per branch, which means that basically all of the units were in use the entire time that they could be checked out. Not surprised.
This is a third-party sponsor, isn't it?
That's correct. It is Sprint. The units themselves are free and they provide really nice heavy-duty cases to circulate them in. We just pay for the data lines. So statistics, announcements. I had sent announcements for the March meeting. Again, the typical things that were going on. I did not bother sending you announcements from mid-March to now because basically all my time has been spent dealing with what do we do now? How do we plan for what is new with COVID-19? So again, we'll talk more about that later. Lots of work from home, but we're also having to come in, while we are not considered right now an essential service. We have essential portions of our operation that have to continue. And so primarily Sarah and I are taking turns coming in and getting things done. You know, payroll gets done, bills get paid, whatever those things need to be done. And I do have the managers working on projects as well, pieces of the, okay, how do we plan and roll out the new normal for us? So several of us are doing those kinds of things, and we're also, well, we'll talk more about the planning later, but for the most part, yeah, we're continuing to keep the library going. I think that's all I have to say about that.
On the announcements, the cleaning service, what hoops did they have to navigate to be approved for coronavirus cleaning?
Actually, they did not have to jump through any hoops, because when we first started talking with Perfectly Polished Cleaning, I had asked them about an option for green cleaners, things that are not quite so heavy duty chemically based and toxic. And true to form, they really looked around to see what they could do, and they had come up with I wish I could tell you what it is. I'd have to go in the back room in the custodial closet and write down the name of it. But it is a peroxide based cleaner that is actually used in healthcare settings. So it is fully rated for all of the what's the right word? I'm struggling for the terminology, all of the health related, medical cleaning. So we don't have to worry about anything because it's all covered by our new cleaners. The only things we'll have to really do is look at the things that are going to be customer based. Handling materials, we're going to have to look at doing those, different processes, different protocols for those. And that's one of the things I've got management team working on, is how to handle library materials. Great questions.
Okay, are we ready? Then there's no committee reports, I don't think. So are we ready to move on to number 6?
There was just the draft of the minutes from the Personnel Committee from the February meeting, and that was just in the March packet. So you should have had that from the prior month, but there wasn't any new activity.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve activities implemented by Executive Director due to lack of March board meeting? A, pandemic preparedness policy. B, COVID-19 operations plan through April 17th. C, appoint Dawn Cheryl Vaughn as office administrator at 30 hours a week at the rate of $14 an hour, salary $21,840 annually, effective March 18th, 2020. Increase compensatory time accrual limit to 3/18/2020 through 12/17/2020. Increase vacation accrual limit to 4 weeks or 20 days, 3/18/2020 through 12/17/2020. Do we have a motion?
Moves that.
Second.
Second.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen, Kathleen,
Yes.
and Sue.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion? Oh, no, go ahead. We haven't approved the rest of us. I'm sorry. I was looking at Jess there in that picture.
I think I got through the list.
You got everybody's okay.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to approve group health insurance policy for the period 5/1/2020 through 4/30/2021 with board contribution of 80% toward individual employee premium, Anthem, Blue Access, SOCA, MEWA, PPO 2500, WHSA with RX option E81.
This is the
I move.
exact renewal of our current plan, just to make that
Mhm.
clear.
Mhm. Yep, I move.
I'll second.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen, Kathleen,
Yes.
and Sue.
Okay, G, a motion to approve a health savings account program administered by Flex Bank for employees enrolled in the library's group health insurance for plan year 5/1/20 through 4/30/21 for each employee contributing a minimum of $20 per day pre-tax deduction through payroll. The board will make a matching contribution of $325 per quarter, not to exceed $1,300 per plan year. Board match is prorated based upon the amount of time during the plan year that the employee's HSA is established. The board reserves the right to change the contribution schedule at any time at its discretion. Do you have a motion?
I move.
I'll second.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Karen, Kathleen,
Yes.
and Sue.
Yes.
Okay, number 7 on the agenda, report on OLC trustee workshop, March the 7th. Sue.
Thank you. I was able to attend the conference. There was some question like a day before from some of my nurse family, whether they were going to cancel it, but they didn't. I thought it was a very effective workshop. I learned a lot. I'm still going through the trustee workbook that they gave me, but there was just so much information that they were able to give me, and I think it's something I'd probably to do every year is to attend it, see what other new things come up. The only difficulty I had was the man that sat next to me was from Stark County. And when we got home the next day, they had reported 2 cases of coronavirus in Stark County. So I hoped he wasn't one of them. But I think it was very informative and something I would want to continue.
I appreciate you going to this, and when things settle down a little bit, I hope we can share some of the specific information that you think is going to be most helpful to us.
Right.
Sorry, Kathleen, I had muted you while Sue was talking. I had muted everybody while Sue was talking.
You muted me, huh?
I muted everybody, yeah.
Oh. I'm okay now?
Yes, you're okay now.
Okay. The trustee term. is currently held by Sue Milliken for 6/27/2020 through 6/26/2027.
Move.
So typically, we first ask the
Yes, we
person
would
whether
recommend,
they
right.
want to actually continue. And then the board, gives their 2 cents worth. And Sue and I haven't talked about it, so.
Well, I very much would like to stay on the board, yes.
Thank you, Sue. Do we have a motion to approve disposal of excess inventory? This was back February.
I move.
I'll second.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
and Sue.
Yes.
Okay, number 10, do we have a motion to amend the motion number 011-20 from February 2020 meeting regarding Guiding Ohio Online contracts to remove Jason Rankin and replace with Logan Kirkhart?
I move.
Can I ask you a question first? What's the reason for the swapping around?
I had asked Jason if he was interested in a specific GU activity. We were going to partner with the Chamber of Commerce and help them teach chamber members how to use the new software, and do their own web pages, that kind of thing. Jason was supposed to have given me an answer before I sent out the agenda, but I included him anyway on it. Turned out that he did not want to add that to his plate. And so instead, Logan is going to be working on those kinds of things.
Thank you.
So do we have a motion?
I move.
I'll move.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen, Kathleen,
Yes.
Sue.
Yes.
Okay, now,
Did we skip number 9 or was I asleep?
I think it went pretty quickly. I think 9 happened quickly.
Okay, then the only question I had was, how do we recycle these items?
We use a service called Accurate IT. They are Columbus based, and they will come down when we have, well, for the electronic things, they will come down and take however much stuff we have, and they actually purpose as much as possible. They also provide certificates for the destruction of hard drives and that kind of thing. But yeah, they pretty much take most things electronic and actually have people employed who take them apart and use the parts for different things. And it's really a good, it's a really good service.
That's neat. Is there a provision or do they handle public recycling?
I believe that if you wanted to bring things that were acceptable to the library, we would keep them because they want us to have either 1 or 2 pallets worth of stuff at once. So we collect for a while before we call them. So
Which library would you take those to then?
you could take them to your most convenient library and then we'll figure out from there where we're going to have them come and pick up.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is number 11, motion to enter into Guiding Ohio online trainer contracts with Heather Patton, Tammy Sherwood, and Dawn C. Vaughn for 1/2020 through 9/30/2020. Combined total of all trainer contracts not to exceed 29,400, including LSTA funds, 22,050, 75%, distributed by SLO, and local match 7,350, which is 25%.
If I may give a little description about this before you just take a vote. One of the things that has happened since libraries have shut down for the time being is that our GU contractors, and this is not just Brown County Public Library, it's all the people who have the GU grants, have had to find different ways to use their GU trainers because one-on-one is not allowed. And many of the people that we have served in that capacity don't have the kind of technology that allow them to do virtual trainings. And so the state library has been very good about allowing us to use the grant and trainers to do other kinds of library things. So we did some brainstorming and put our focus on our digital, because this is what the grant is about, but our digital marketing, building more of our digital resources, managing the Wi-Fi hotspots, anything that is related to us continuing to provide these kinds of services while we're closed. And so I have asked several of our staff members to become GU trainers to help with this real pile up of things that need to be done pretty quickly. I do not anticipate that any of the staff members who we have made GU contractors to really be carrying it out through the end of September, but the end of September is when the grant officially ends. And so we're just using that as the end date. So that's why you have seen over the last several months, several at a time, of our staff members being identified and being allowed to do the GU activities, especially now in lieu of being able to provide the service the way it used to be provided. So that's the backstory.
Are these supplemental contracts then, or are they replacements?
They are supplemental. They are supplemental.
Okay. Do we have a motion to enter executive session to consider the employment of public employees?
Did we vote on that one? Okay, we need.
No. Oh, no, we didn't vote on that. Sorry.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Mark, Harold,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen, Kathleen,
Yes.
Sue.
Yes.
And before we go into executive session, I'm just going to say that because you already approved the things that I had to do, I would actually like to, I kind of changed my mind. I would like to postpone the activity based around the Law Library Associate. We can't do any hiring at this point anyway, and I would just like us to
Mhm.
sit on that for another month before we get to that. So we can actually skip numbers 12 and 13 and make 14 our COVID-19 discussion about where do we go from here.
Can I ask one quick question before we roll into that?
Sure, absolutely.
Have you been purchasing additional digital materials for
We have.
circulation? Yeah?
Yes, we have. I don't know how long that is going to last. We'll see how, this plays out. But in addition to buying additional digital ebooks, audiobooks, we actually expanded the number of Hoopla downloads people can use every month for the time being. So again, we're going to look at that every month and figure out, where are we now and when do we need to change things?
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Mhm. Good question.
So we're skipping 13,
12 and 13. Mhm.
12 and 13. Do we have any other business?
Yes. Yes. I need guidance, please.
Before we start into that discussion, did you see the OLC newsletter or whatever it was today about the fact that they're looking for funding for libraries?
Yes, I did see that. I know that there has been one round of IMLS. That's the Institute of Museum and Library Services agency that actually is that's where the money came from for the GOO grants. And so the first round of IMLS funding has actually been approved and is going to the state. I know that it is for digital needs, but it would be in the form of grants again. And so we'll need to look into those details. And then I think it was just today came out an appeal for libraries and library supporters to contact the legislators again for the next round, more support through IMLS again. I didn't have a chance to read it thoroughly, Harold, so if you know what it's about specifically, or is it just general?
My take on it is general because I didn't have the time to read through the whole thing.
That leads me to talk a little bit about the lay of the land right now for libraries. So there's IMLS, which has some grant funding that's going to be coming down through the state library. And the Bureau of Workers' Comp in Ohio approved rebates, and we should get back a little under $1,200 as our rebate from our 2018 payment. And that's it. That's pretty much all that public libraries are eligible for. We are not eligible for the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program. We are not eligible for WARN. I can't remember exactly what that acronym stands for. We have to continue doing our jobs and supporting everybody else who's been impacted by this economy, but we're not getting any assistance ourselves, which is not the way I'd prefer it to be. But there may be the possibility that FEMA funds that come to the county, we could apply for some money that would reimburse for the cost of disinfecting So, maybe it will pay for some of our cleaning service as we prepare to open up again, and maybe even deep cleans in between, weeks of usage. But that's kind of it. As far as the unemployment side of this goes, just a reminder that we are what's called a reimbursing employer, which means that we do not pay into unemployment on a regular basis. It means when someone makes a claim, then we pay. So one of the reasons that I wanted to go ahead and keep people on payroll immediately when this all happened was to buy us some time and figure out, well, what's going to come down the pike? Well, what came down the pike as far as staffing goes is pretty much nothing. But it really is not to our benefit to have people going on unemployment because we're still going to be paying them. And so we need,
do we
I'm
pay at
sorry.
the same rate?
It's not at exactly the same rate, and that's why, I want some guidance, what the board wants to do in terms of, continuing a subsidy, if you will, at some level for some period of time, which of course, those are all unknowns at this point. But when Sarah and I were discussing, what we've got for staffing, and the cost of us having to do the record keeping and making the payments and still paying our payroll out to people who are getting paid through unemployment instead, and their effort of having to go through jumping all the hoops to get onto unemployment, it doesn't seem to me to be a wise, reasonable way for us to be spending our time or money. So if we can find a good, appropriate balance of continuing to pay our staff, even if we're not open to the public the way we have been, and balancing that with work duties at some level. I think that that's the best goal to shoot for. Now, exactly what that looks like, that's what we really need to talk about. And you need to give me some parameters for implementing this as it plays out. We can obviously go from 1 month's meeting to the next. I like to plan out a little farther than that if I can, but with the playing field changing as rapidly as it has been, that may not be realistic. But I think we need to have a longer term plan because, as we've intimated, funding is going to go down. We've already seen it a little bit. I suspect that we may see throughout the rest of the year, perhaps a 20% reduction, and we need to plan for that, in this bigger picture. So that's kind of the lay of the land. And I gave you, there's so much information out there. I am going to, my disclaimer is, as much as I have read from Ohio Library Council and their attorneys and have been on webinars with our risk management group, I can't say that I know exactly all of the little details of all of these plans, but we are under obligation to pay everyone at the very least 2 weeks of paid sick leave through the expanded FMLA. So that's got to be done, in this bigger picture. Again, kind of my own personal, keep asking us to do more and more and don't find any way to, help out your poor public libraries in the process. So that's just my own little mini rant over now. But I believe that I sent to you all, and I know it's in Dropbox, just this week, some information that kind of shows you what we have already done to some extent. There's a document called COVID-19 response, and it's got the April date on it. A little bit like this. Got the patron section. I'm almost afraid to share a screen because I don't know if I'll lose you all while I'm doing that.
Are we, looks like we're losing.
Well, I had tried to share a screen. With my Dropbox, but it's not there, so.
Okay.
And I can't get you back now.
We're here, Lynn.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't see you all there, but
It's probably just.
Well, I
the
see.
window.
yeah, and it's not giving me an option to open it up. So anyway, I can't pull up the Dropbox from where I am now. And on top of this, I finally got my new tablet, and going from Windows 8.1 to Windows 10 is yeah, there's not a lot of crossover. So we're doing things already. We've talked about increased purchases of electronic resources, about stepping up our Wi-Fi hotspots. We've also extended the due dates for all our materials. And that's till the 8th of May. That was actually something that SEO had suggested that we all do system consortium wide. And we have waived fines for that period of time. We removed blocks on accounts so that people could use electronic resources without, it doesn't matter if they have fines or not, because, they're not going to not return the electronic resources. We have produced some virtual story times. We're actually right now in the process of recording some story times that are going to be broadcast through C103 and the radio station. It's not quite up and running yet, but we are adding an online chat feature to our website so that we can also be available to help patrons that way, as well as the voicemail and email that we respond to. And the branch Wi-Fi, we actually talked about that as well. But we did close our drop boxes because we didn't at the time have a protocol for handling materials. It was still out whether how long viruses and germs might last on books, but I believe we've got that under control now and could start taking returns. But we had no choice when it came to delivery from other libraries. Some libraries, obviously closed and they were not shipping things out, but the state library was the one that decided when the delivery system was going to stop. So I'm assuming we aren't going to have control over when it starts either, that the state library will make that decision. We got the Zoom account going. We are paying a nominal fee through TechSoup, which is a way for libraries to get discounted rates on technology products. We may not need it after we get through this year, but then again, maybe we'll find this is the way to communicate with each other more. We are doing some building maintenance things while the buildings are closed, things we would do anyway, like fixing parking lot lights and doing the fire inspections. I'm having managers work on the protocols for people, such as, before we come in every morning, we take our temperature. We are now cloth masks are being promoted. Obviously they're not things that will keep us safe, but will keep each other safe. We have actually ordered plexiglass screens for our circulation desks so that we can protect both our staff and our customers when they start coming back in. We talked about refocusing GU activities. We are identifying very specific things that some staff members will be able to do as work from home. And then, we already did our initial, pre-stimulus package relief for staff as well. So there are some things we're doing, and I understand that Heather would like to say something.
Okay, so, wow.
All right. Why?
Heather's muted.
Well, and for whatever reason, I am having, there we go. There we go. Why my window went down to itty bitty and was not showing me a way to make it larger. Yeah, okay.
Okay, do we have any other business then?
Response to Lynn's discussion early on, I agree that since we're going to pay the majority of this unemployment anyway, or would be paying it anyway, that it's kind of silly to not take advantage of it and keep our people working. And at least until we see, well, at least until we get to a point where we realize we can't afford it. I'll put it that way. But right now, I think we can afford it.
I agree.
And so my point is that I think we're going to come out of this, and libraries are going to be different than they used to be. My daughter and I talked about it today a little bit, and the IMLS is geared toward digital. And so I think that's where we have to spend a lot of time seeing how we're going to manage this over the next generation. So it seems logical to me that maybe we take advantage of the fact that we've got these staff members that don't have other things to do that could use Zoom as a way of brainstorming and seeing how we might attack libraries in the future. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Harold, you said exactly what I was going to say. That was fantastic. The way we have to approach this, and, about 3 weeks ago, Dr. Fauci made a comment and he said, we're never going to return to normal. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what he meant by that 3 weeks ago. And now I do. And there's been a lot of conversation within corporate America and how we're not going to be able to return to normal. So, I think our focus has to be one day at a time, 1 month at a time, because we don't know. It seems like every day it's something else. It changes. We don't know what Trump's going to do. We don't know what the individual states are going to do. We don't know if the library won't get funding. We could 30 days from now. We don't know that. So I think as we plan, one day at a time, 1 month at a time, and then I absolutely love what Harold said. I think we can't be short-sighted. I think we need to spend the time now, especially with people having extra time. Lane, if you want to put together a task force for the library, assign 3 or 4 people or the management team to say, okay, guys, starting now, we know we're not going to return to normal. So let's start talking about what the library is going to look like in the future. Because I don't think we're going to open just all one day. Yay, it's open. No, I think it's going to be in stages. We may open by allowing 12 people in at a time, then maybe 25, or we may not have that. Then what are we going to do as a library system to prepare for that? We have to take advantage of our website, and offer services there. And I think that's where our focus needs to be moving forward.
Heather, I did finally unmute you. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Heather.
Hey. I'll try not to cough in your ears. One, we don't have the chat window up yet on the website, but we have had several patrons that have chatted with us through Facebook Messenger. And that's been a fairly decent way of communicating with some of them and walking them through some of the digital resources. We also have a COVID resource page on the website right now where I've been adding, hold on 1 second, I'm going to cough again. I'm adding different resources for like the online learning, anything that I find that's open for our patrons, I've been adding to it. Sorry, I'm sick.
Her usual spring, bronchitis, yeah. Mm-hmm. But she's being very careful and treating it as if it was the plague of death.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and that's one of the ways that, Heather, to this point, until we were able to make her GU, was doing some of the coordination of this because we couldn't tell people, staffing, you can't just ask someone to work when other people aren't working. Management team, yes, hourly people, no. So management team divided up some activities and Heather was pushing this out, and now she's able to do some of it through GU, but now we can have Tammy actually pick that up and keep up with the marketing end of it. So yeah, I didn't mention that specifically, but thank you, Heather, for bringing that. I didn't have that on my list about adding our page about COVID resources to our website.
Another idea, thinking forward to summer reading program. While it seems like that couldn't possibly happen, I found a resource called Loose Cannon, CANON, and they have been working with schools to help schools host online book clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And they provide the platform for it. I don't know if that might be something that you could look into. It may not be a good fit, but I thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Actually, on our last management conference call, that was one of the things that we talked about, was that we we're already planning on summer reading program looking very different. A lot of virtual, a lot of passive activities, making the assumption that the library would be accessible physically at a very limited level. I think Mark, you specifically said it, that it's going to be a gradual rollout. And that's what we're planning for. We know that May 1 is right now the official end of the stay-at-home order. However, even though the curve is flattening, we don't know exactly what that means. And my first thought is that not if, when the order is rescinded, that first week afterwards, the library does not open up to the public, right away. We use that first week to start bringing staff in on a staggered basis, making sure they are all appropriately trained for their own hygiene protocols as well as materials handling protocols. And then the next week start probably by appointment only, because we do not know what the new definitions of mass gatherings are going to be at that point. We know that we have heard, and apparently historically it was seen that, people get let loose, they want to go out, they want to be with everyone, and guess what? Then you have a resurgence and a spike. And so I suspect that we will be slowly rolling those things out. Which is why I also put out on Dropbox, and I believe I emailed this to you all, the chart of, mine's nice and green, it's not green in the Dropbox, but basically what are some of our standard options for service models, and then what are some of our standard options for operations, and these can be mix and match. Anybody remember Granimals? Was that
Yep.
Yeah.
you pick
Yep.
the lion tag and the closed match? Well, I think we're going to have to do some of that with both the patron services that we're rolling out and then the staffing that goes along with it. And I do see us, while we will need to do a number of remote services initially in a larger way, as we open up more to the public, those may diminish some, but I do not see them completely going away. I see this as being one of those pieces where what's the new normal? It's going to be providing the chat service, whether it's through Facebook Messenger or the chat widget on our website. So I tried to give you a sense of, what does it look like, what we're doing for patrons when we're closed? What does it look like when it's by appointment? What would the next step be? Partial hours, limited service, like, what I heard, 12 people at a time or whatever, it ends up being. And then, when is full service? Are we going to be back to full service by the fall? We don't have control. I'm not really certain exactly what that means. So I have some question marks in my little boxes, in my cells on my table. Same thing with the operations, what does it mean in terms of the kinds of things we do? And I left those last couple of rows on my table under operations. Do we have staff working 25% of their hours because we're not actually open, it's just by appointment, and I can't have 6 people in a building at once? If they're staff members, we've got to stagger them. So that's part of that's going to be on the managers to figure out how many people they can have on the staff side, and do they need, and how do they balance that with the number of hours so that we maintain consistency. I think it's important, particularly for our hourly staff, to be able to say, okay, you're all going to be working at 25% of your hours. Yes, we'll pay you at whatever it is, if we decide 75% or, whatever that number is, but everybody puts in what 25% is for them so that there is a fairness and an equity in this. I've talked a lot.
Lynn,
Yes.
couple of things to think about and what we're talking about at Great American downtown is, number one, we're going to probably be bringing people back at 1 day a week. Then maybe bump it up to 2 days a week and 3 days. I don't know if we're ever going to work 5 days a week at the office anymore. Then the other big topic of conversation is I think all companies, profit or nonprofit, have to be ready for employees that say they can't return to a building. And that's one of the things we're talking about at Great American, and we are expecting that. So for example, if we have 45 people in my department, there may be 2 or 3 because of anxiety, underlying mental deficiencies, whatever. I think we need to be prepared for that, that the entire staff may not want to return for fear.
Mm-hmm. We've already seen that. I think that was part of the social media negativity that we saw arise at the very beginning, perhaps was due some to that, the fear. And, I want to be clear that, I make no judgment about that. I mean, we all have our individual situations. And, while I tend to be not an alarmist and pretty calm, I'm also careful and wear a mask and, wear gloves upon occasion. And, whereas my husband would be going out to Home Depot and Best Buy every day if he could, so we all have, like you said, we have to be able to be prepared for that. And part of that for me and the management team is getting the legal advice about, okay, so when are you not performing the function of your job, if you're not in the building, because we have a number of activities that are based upon the physical facility. And that's going to be an interesting piece of all of this.
And that is something else we talked about, Lynn. What do you do with people that say, I can't do it and I want to work from home? That becomes a legal question. And how do you handle that? I mean, are you wanting to fire people because they don't want to come in, or they only want to work part-time because of the coronavirus, and how's that going to look? And, there's a lot of issues facing employers that have to be discussed and you have to be prepared for.
Yes. Yeah. We are fortunate to have the Ohio Library Council doing a lot of that work for us. We've had 2 facts already, the frequently asked questions in writing to us. A third one's in development just on the HR part of it. Everything from, which of those nice little stimulus programs do libraries qualify for? 0 for most of them. Yeah. And then that other side, what do we have to do? So, we're relying heavily upon them. I've also toyed with the idea of contacting Scott Warwick, who is the HR legal professional who does, the annual employment law seminars for us, and seeing what it would cost for him to just assess our situation, give us specific legal advice for our place of business.
I like that. Yes. it's all about being prepared, Lynn, as best we can.
Mhm.
So we're not stuck.
Absolutely. Okay, then I guess,
Before you do that, I want to be sure I understand this chart well. So the column that says closed, these are the things that we are doing as closed, right?
Yes,
And
correct.
so then if we can move to a different stage, then we would go to the by appointment, and these are the things we could do.
Mhm.
And so, and then moving over to full service.
Right.
It appears to me that another thought is that since most of this money that I saw, that I read about briefly today, I think is going to be available to us in grants only, right? In other words,
Correct.
people aren't going to, libraries are not going to get a percentage or whatever. It's just going to be by grant only. Do we have the staff that we can apply to that need?
You mean the application process or the actual carrying out if we got a grant?
Well, both,
Okay.
both. I mean, could we designate some people who are going to be working on these grants, and then other people who can implement them?
I believe so. It's going to mean a lot of changing of people's current, and this is why I'm struggling a little bit, because I have to get out of the, okay, who do we have? What do they do now versus what might they not have to be doing in the future that they could be turned then to this other thing. We do have staff who have, I think, the ability, and both in helping to prepare the applications and to carry them out. And it's really going to be a matter of juggling them so that we can also carry out things that we should be doing live or face to face. Heather, any thoughts about that?
I agree. We'll have to look and kind of probably juggle a little bit and then delegate a little bit more than what because we only can do so much.
Raises the question, are there things that you're doing now that we probably would not continue to do in a revised setting?
Okay, my opinion right now is that it's just a new setting period. So it's going to be a major learning curve for all of us. And it's taking us a lot of time and effort just to try to figure out how to stay ahead and to get with everybody else and get with the times and still be relevant and helpful to people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I am not ready to just dismiss the IMLS money offhand, just because I know how much work a federal grant entails. But we will have to look at it very carefully. I see opportunity for partnering with either neighboring libraries or other agencies. This is another place where we really are going to be spending our time looking at our essential functions and deciding, are they really essential, or are there different ways to carry them out? So, we'll find the money. I mean, we'll beat the bushes until we can find some support if it's going to really further our needs. One of the things that I did mention to Michelle Francis at Ohio Library Council, because they did a survey of libraries and what are we doing right now as a means of being able to communicate with our legislators about how important we are, and don't just rip our funding out from underneath us, because you're going to need us as we're trying to recover as a state. But the GRIT project, the Growing Rural Independence Together Through Jobs project, that was money was earmarked for southern, southeastern, southwestern Ohio. For that, I actually see that as an initial big project that can be used as leverage to get some other funding, because this is what's going to need to be rolled out. People are going to need virtual places to conduct work because they can't always do it at home, but they still need the internet facilities. And people are going to need the skills to be able to do it. So in my mind, that's one of the places that we can already use, or one of the projects we can already use to do it. And, it may mean that, we've got staff who are, presented with the opportunity to do something brand new and exciting.
And another thing to consider is when you're looking for agencies to partnership, don't forget about the schools, because at least in Brown County, you don't have school librarians that are trained teacher librarians. And while I think the schools that have teacher aides are all doing the best they can and they're helping the kids as best they can, they're not necessarily being called upon to facilitate continued teaching during this time. So being able to help support the schools and the teachers might be one really viable way that you can partner with somebody and do something super meaningful right now.
That's a great opportunity. We work with the County Educational Service Center as our big group to help roll things out, but the individual branches going to their local schools and seeing what they can do to help. Absolutely.
I just wanted to add, like here at Fayetteville schools and with the vocational school both, those students that don't have internet, they are giving them the opportunity to pick up packets for a week's work once a week. Like one family can come in, like at Fayetteville, to the middle school foyer and pick up a week's packet of work. And the meals they're providing is unbelievable at Fayetteville, and the vocational school families are really taking advantage of that. And the students doing their work, unfortunately, we don't have parents nowadays like they used to be 50 years ago or 60 years ago that stay on top of what their child is doing. And if the student isn't doing their homework, it's not because the school isn't providing the opportunity. Those teachers are going out of their way to provide the opportunities for those students to get their homework and providing meals. To me, that's a positive. So
my hope is that we had been approved for, I want to call it AmeriCorps, but the Vista worker to help with summer feeding program this summer. We don't know how and if that has been impacted, but my hope would be that there would still be that opportunity for the libraries during the summer to continue, supporting with the food needs of the students, the kids and the families. So I jotted
Right
that
now,
down.
that's on hold.
What's that?
Lynn, that's
Yes.
on hold right now.
Is it?
And, I talked to Denise from AppCap. Yeah, it's on hold right now, but they're still holding a spot for the AmeriCorps worker for us if and when it happens.
Yeah. If and when it happens, yes, indeed. So to kind of bring us back around, through this week, through middle of April, we're on what I called Code Red, where we're closed to the public and only management staff are pretty much doing work. My thought is, because we still have 2 weeks before the order from the Department of Health may come to an end, is that for at least the next week, and that would be the week of the 20th, we continue in that same mode. Now, I had asked for up to 4 weeks, but that would make it 5 weeks. So that would be something we would need to consider if we go ahead and do that for one more week. But then the week of the 27th, potentially start, still closed to the public, but start bringing staff in at a very reduced level to begin with that training in the hygiene and safety protocols. That gives us a full week of doing that before we know what's going to happen with the current stay-at-home order. And then if it is actually rescinded as of May 1st, it would also give us another full week after that to finish up that training and prepare for being inundated with return materials and all of that kind of thing. But, you know, and then we see, you know, what is the definition of mass gatherings? How many people are they going to allow to be in one place at one time? And really just base what we do upon that. You know, I fully suspect we'd go back to by appointment only. Those 4 weekdays that were open from 9 to 4, and limit the number of people coming in based upon the size of the building, and what the staffing can handle at that reduced rate, and continue that until such time as we get a new definition of mass gathering. You know, I'm hopefully looking at all of the restrictions gradually being eased and not going backwards, although we have a plan for backwards because we've been living it. And then, you know, maybe come June 1, you know, we actually can add in Saturdays, you know, and expand our by appointments, maybe add in an evening by appointment, and beef up the staffing based upon how much we can actually be open. Mark, you talked about it in terms of people going in one day a week or that kind of thing. And it would essentially be the same for us in terms of, okay, if we're going to have a 30-hour person work 50% of their hours, well, that might be 2 days, you know, split into two separate days, and staggering people by branch so that we don't have staff members creating unsafe environments for themselves, let alone for patrons, you know. But I would really like to see us, you know, at some point, you know, maybe by fall, you know, be back to a new normal, which includes more routine face-to-face kinds of activities, even though we know there's going to still be a lot of new stuff going on in the background. And I guess what I would like from the board is a decision about what is that magic number, you know, that we would feel is appropriate to be paying staff while they are not working their full hours, you know.
I
address
feel
that.
like you've got some pretty good managers, Lynn. It sounds to me like you're really on top of this, and I guess I'm a positive thinker. So I think you and the managers are gonna come up with the best solution to get us through all of this.
This is why we're not sleeping at night.
Are you saying then, as far as the chart is concerned, then that there's inserting another column in there between closed and by appointment, which is 2 weeks of staff development kind of thing?
Um, I would, I'm not sure I would actually put in another column. You know, I would say it's still being closed to the public, still providing the patrons with the services that we're already doing as closed to the public. But we start from the operations side, bringing our staff in to reorient them and train them in the new ways to be doing their jobs safely, or to be training them in entirely new jobs that they'll be doing, as a way to accommodate the new way that we're all living and interacting with one another. So I could see the closed to patrons, working with, at least for this initial startup, do we want to bring people in at 25% of their hours or 30% of their hours? And if we're going to do that, do you still want to pay people at 100% of their hours, or for a shorter period of time, do you want to reduce that some? I mean, I know there's a balance between, just not making any changes and saying, listen, we've got the money now. We know that there may be some changes and cuts later. We may have some people opt not to work at all. We've already had some in the initial, phase of that, the short by appointment phase, just say, I can't, for whatever reason. And, so it could look different, but that's where I don't want to just say, okay, we pay everybody 100% and then we just start working them back in, if you feel that a different approach is more appropriate.
Okay,
Lynn,
so you're
I'm
saying
trying to
add
keep
a
everybody
row.
working as long as you can and make adjustments if you have to.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Tracy, you said.
Somebody else was talking.
It was,
Are you saying adding a row under operations that would be staff training, and that would be going on while you're closed then?
Yes. I did not put in either of those sections. Like for the patrons, I didn't put in all of the routine things that we would do face to face. I kind of just, that was an assumption on my part, under the full service. But yes, so for under operations, staff training, I suspect we're going to be doing staff training all the time, because there's going to be something new coming all the time, or as we're adjusting to our new service models. But initially, as we gear up to the restrictions being lifted, starting to bring staff in a little bit, it might be one person one day for a couple of hours, to teach someone, here's how we're going to handle the materials that are coming in and get the process down. And then the next day somebody else comes in. I know, Heather, that's not the most efficient way, but that's also, one of the ways that we stagger it, so that we are requiring everyone who wants to work to come in at the same level percentage of their hours, and we get it done in a safe way. And that's one of my big things is, I do not want us to create an environment where we are acting in any kind of disregard for people's safety. I mean, it's hard in this environment where we all pretty much consider each other family, to not act like family sometimes, and to make sure that we stay our distance and, wear our masks and whatever. And so I think that we're going to have to really gear up slowly. And that's why I'm kind of looking at 2 weeks of that kind of a process before we start taking appointments for members of the public to come in and use services or materials on a very limited basis. So I
Tracy,
would
what was
see
your-
starting that. Go ahead.
Tracy, what was your point about payment?
I just think that under the strange circumstances, and if we can keep people contributing viably in some way, that we ought to try to keep paying everybody while we can. And if it comes down to it where we have to cut hours or you have to spread things out or whatever, things more drastic, then I think we should just reevaluate, each month where we are, how things are going. Are we able to keep everybody involved? That's all.
I agree with that in that as long as we can possibly do it, we should make them whole.
Yeah, right. I agree.
So let me ask this then, knowing that there are some people who have opted not to come in while we were doing by appointment only and telling people, okay, we only need you for 50% of your time, under these circumstances. So are we saying that we will do that only if people are willing to come and work?
I think maybe the better word might be contribute.
Yeah.
There may be people who are concerned. Maybe they have a sick person at home, or they're taking care of older family members. But if they could do something that is contributing to the greater good, something you need that they can do from home, then maybe they could be the person that monitors the chat from your website, or they could be a person that the phone comes to them when people have questions, and they would have to be on call or working a certain amount of time that that you would deem appropriate and accomplishing a certain amount of stuff. But I think that's how I feel about it.
Okay.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what about people using paid leave during that time? If, and this is where we also get into everybody gets 2 weeks of FMLA paid sick time. There are some restrictions about how it can be used and all, but assuming we meet those guidelines, if someone says, I'm not ready to come back yet, I can't, and they are not someone who is appropriate to put on call to do the chat or other kinds of things, then does that contribute also include allowing them to use their paid leave for whatever percentage we say we want other people to contribute?
A tricky question.
It's, guess what? People will find all kinds of scenarios, and I've got to be ready to. I need to know. I what the intent is.
You and your managers know your people better than we do, so I think you would know how you deal with each individual, and I have confidence in your ability to do a good job there, Lynn.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I appreciate her dilemma here is that you can't make everybody 100% whole and still have some people who refuse to do any, maybe refuse is too strong of a word, but prefer not to make any contribution during that time. I think that's your dilemma, isn't it, Lynn?
That's the dilemma right there.
What if they could use their paid time off, as much of it as they've earned, and at that point, if they're still not ready to come back, you furlough, keep paying their health insurance, and give them an option to come back when they're comfortable. Maybe if you do something like that, maybe there has to be some sort of a balance between, like, for the amount of time that we've covered you, you have to work that long after things are clear. I don't even know. Things are clear. What does that even mean? I don't know. Like
work time?
some sort of a balanced agreement where if you're going to furlough them but carry their health care, if they don't come back and work at a certain point, after a certain amount of time, then they have to pay back part of the health care. They have to, I don't know. I understand what you're saying because it could get out of control.
Mhm.
I understand what you're saying, Tracy, but I think you have to be careful in using the word furlough because that could allow them to apply for unemployment.
Oh, okay. I thought that was what made it not have to be.
No, no. And I see Sue has had her hand up here and has something to say. So
Yeah.
let her chime in.
I think when you get to the point where they're too scared to come in and they've used up their time, there has to be a discussion. Are you ever going to feel like you can come back to work? Because we can't keep carrying them if this isn't going to be something they can do. And my daughter is an HR at a health facility, and she ran into this with some of the people. I'm scared to go to work. Well, we can't pay you to stay home because you're scared. We can pay you to stay home when you're sick. I think that there's, they use up their sick time, and then there has to be a discussion. If there isn't anything for them to do, there has to be discussion. Do you think you're going to be able to come in if you can't find something in the building that keeps them away from people, or something that, because it's going to get to the point where I don't think we're ever going to be back to normal. I think until they get immunization, we're going to be under masks. We're going to be under 6-foot rules and things like that. But I think they have to consider whether they're going to be able to.
That's an excellent point. And there are some staff who will not have any paid time off because of the number of hours. So they'll be there at that point more quickly than others will be there. And then the expanded FMLA actually addresses some of that. The one thing I did see about that, even though it can be used for a multitude of reasons based around COVID-19, I did see information from Ohio Library Council that made it very clear that it cannot be used for people who just don't want to come into work.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's that. At least we wouldn't have to do that extra, for them. But yeah, there's.
Yeah, but determining that is kind of like reading a person's mind, isn't it?
Well, and Sarah and I have talked about actually pulling the chart that OLC provided of those 6 reasons for using the FMLA and just plopping it into a form so that when staff want to use that within the given parameters, they have to choose which is their situation and sign off on it so that we know, because there also are different payment levels surrounding those reasons. So it gets really complicated and messy.
So what is this chart down here at the bottom that says staffing level? Does that mean that if you do not work, you'd be getting paid leave at 100%, right?
Correct, right.
And the next line is if you work 25%, you'd get paid at 75%. Is that
well, right? That was more of a, this is how the hours would be split. So do we want to do that? Do we want to have them work 25% of their hours? And I wasn't sure at this point whether you would want to fully fund wages or do some percentage of them. If you were wanting to do some percentage, I was really going to recommend not doing less than 70% because with the unemployment that, that they might opt, to anyway, it just made more sense to keep it at a higher level. But yeah, do we have them do a 25-75 where we're actually underwriting 75% of their wages, but they're working 25%, but the total equals 100%. up there.
So your guess is that at some point that they would find it more advantageous to apply for unemployment if we got down too far on the
Yeah.
chart.
Yes. And then it hurts us because we are a reimbursing employer and we don't pay until someone makes a claim. And then we all have to do tons of paperwork. So it's, I am thrilled actually and grateful that you are all of a mind that we need to support our local employees for as long as we are able. And we're going to, every month, we're going to be looking at the budget. Next month, my plan was to say, okay, here are new projections. Here's where we can cut. But that makes it easier for me to be able to then say, okay, all I have to worry about is ramping up the staffing and changing the nature of their actual activities and not worry about, are we going to have to juggle unemployment or furloughs or layoff or any of those other things that, it's just, we don't have an HR department. It's me and Sarah, and Megan jumps in sometimes. I mean, we have enough other things to worry about. So
This only applies to hourly people, right?
Yeah, salaried people get their salary, and that's why they're the ones who've been tasked with working on some of these other pieces already and doing some of the other things that need to be done. I'm also trying to be very cognizant of the fact that, everybody else is getting paid at 100% and don't have to work. So if they're still getting their salaries and yet they do have to work, I'm trying to be really careful. We're not trying to overload anyone, and we're looking at, comp time as well for if somebody's working on a significant project, so that, they're not being taken advantage of, in the big picture. So it's a day-to-day.
Can we do this paid leave 100%? Can we do it month by month rather than freezing it into a year-long plan?
Yeah, I think that would be better,
So the wages at 100% with varied staffing contributions based upon whatever circumstances, whatever plan the managers make. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, is to look at it month to month, because that's how the money numbers are going to be coming in.
I mean, it could be worse, or it could get worse instead of better.
Oh, yes, that's absolutely right.
We're hoping. What? Did you? No. Okay.
You blipped in and out there, Karen.
Well, my phone is trying to die, so I'm plugged in to move. So I should be okay. I don't know why I'm blinking in and out. I'm here. I'm still listening.
Good. Well, you're coming through loud and clear now, so.
Oh, good.
So I'm not sure what kind of a motion that needs to take then is, through the next board meeting, or through, grab my calendar here. Next board meeting is scheduled for May 20th.
So what if we did it through the 21st?
Or does it make it easier to run to the end of the month?
Oh.
What if we had our May meeting early May instead of mid-May? And my point being, we will know what the governor is proposing on May 1st, right?
We'll know something.
Well, we know something every day.
We'll know something, exactly. We'll know something.
If you can stand to listen to it all.
So May 13th, would everyone be available if we moved it up a week?
I'm saying even earlier than that.
The 6th?
6th of May. Okay.
We don't have to have the financials. I know it's would be pretty hard to put those together within a few days at the end of the month. But maybe we would just simply call it a special meeting.
Special meeting to address,
Yeah.
COVID-19.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like that. That's a good idea.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Same time, 6:30?
Special meeting then May the 6th.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
That
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay.
And so what you're approving now would run through the 8th to give us time to regroup if you decide something different, or through the end of a pay period. Would that be easier, Sarah?
Pay period would be better, yes. When is the end of the May pay period?
It would be the 17th, which is a Sunday, but the 17th is the end of the pay period after that, so.
Right, well, that would make more sense then, yeah.
Okay, then, so instead of the 6th, the 17th.
I think that the
maybe-
special meeting's still on the
Oh,
6th,
okay.
is that right?
Regular meeting the 17th.
No,
I
I
may not be available on the 6th, but if I'm the only one, you still have a quorum.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is a special meeting on the 6th or whatever date we select there, but then have our regular meeting on the 3rd Wednesday, whatever that is,
20th.
20th.
Okay.
That's fine.
So any committee meetings are to be determined.
Yeah.
So are we ready then for adjournment?
So did we actually, did you want to put into a motion the plan, or
I would be
Probably
happy to-
we should put it on the books, yeah.
I think so.
Okay,
I'd be happy to move that we pay it 100% until the end of the May pay period on the 17th.
I second that.
okay.
Then we have plenty of time on the 6th to make changes after that period.
And this would be that the 100% pay would be for all staff willing to contribute at levels determined by management.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Can everybody tell me who made the first motion
Sue did.
I did.
and who seconded it?
Second
Carol
it.
did, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Harold?
You waiting on me?
Oh, I need to run through the list. Sorry.
Yep, we need a vote.
Mark,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
and Sue.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Okay, then, if we're all finished, I guess time to adjourn.
Okay.
Y'all,
Everybody stay safe and healthy.
Yep, everybody stay
all.
safe.
Okay, stay safe.
Bye.
Thank
Agreed.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, Jim
Bye.
Bob.
Okay.